Hello and welcome to the 59th edition of Why Don't You Go and Get Booked? And why don't you, really? I mean, Why Don't You Go and Get Booked is an online program that educates keynote speakers, trainers, and coaches on how to implement a sales and marketing strategy into their business. So I'm going to go through a lot of material today, and while I cannot get into the nitty-gritty of each of the topics that I cover on the live stream, you can head over to speakmark.com.au for further details on the program, and we would love to have you. Okay, so our guest today is Elly Johnson, or as I call her, Elly Johnson, who is one of the hardest working people I know. We're going to be having a talk about Elly's virtual setup, and we'll be discussing something called interoperability. That's a vital cog in and around the virtual presentation space, and something which can cost you if you don't have it checked off. So my goal today is not so much to go through the technicalities with you, but rather to make you aware of doing things like tech runs and some of the pitfalls that you may run into. Last week we were with Elly when she did a tech run with one of her clients for a virtual prezzo she's doing next week. So I'm sure having Elly on to share some of her insights will be both illuminating and valuable for you. There's nothing like it coming from the cold face, and that's basically what we're doing with Elly. So now I created this program because I saw a common deficiency in the sales and marketing efforts of many keynote speakers, trainers and coaches that I've worked with over the years. And this is prevalent in high profile presenters and is almost by default and inherent with those of you who are just beginning your journey, because it's likely that you didn't become a presenter of some kind to become a sales and marketing professional, right? I get it. And now I'm not suggesting that you need to do so to become a marketing or sales professional, but if you don't get a grasp on the basics of sales and marketing, you're gonna be spinning your wheels forevermore. Sounds like a song, right? So, sales and marketing. Now, you hear me saying this a lot. Every business rises and falls on the efforts of their sales and marketing teams. Now, that's a stone cold fact. Without anyone in the business focusing on this crucial business staple, sooner or later you'll feel the pain, you'll become disillusioned and give up. And I've seen it happen a lot more than I would like. It's quite sad, actually. And sometimes people have got nowhere else to go. But if you get into this sales and marketing stuff and really sort of focus on it, you will find you have more opportunities. Your pipeline's going to be full. And boy, oh boy, is it exciting when you make a sale, right? We all love it, right? You're running in, yay, sale, woohoo! In fact, Matthew Pollard and I, when we get a sale, we do the dance with each other. We sort of get online and we do this sort of ceremonial dance. Up for that? Yeah, let's go. So why is it hard? Why is it so hard with this sales and marketing? Because it's bloody hard work. It takes resilience, patience, and time to do the work required to get your business to the point where everything is in place. So it's easy to move off the path. You know, it's so easy to beat yourself up and think about throwing in the towel. You don't have anyone to confide in, and that's what you get when you're in this program. You get me, and I basically live, eat, sleep, breathe this stuff, and I keep you moving in the right direction. Now, while the lesson program will give you information that you need to be effective in sales and marketing, the kicker is having someone like me in your corner, cheering you on, tuning you in like a radio channel that's just slightly off, and trying to get it right there with the goal of winning business and making. So I wanted to start out talking today about our attitude in Australia particularly, and I'm sure it's the case in other parts of the world. It's not the case in the USA, but our attitudes towards sales. Now in the US, it's celebrated, and I think we should really try and change the culture here in Australia to celebrate the fact that sales make the world go round. Sales make business. We need to embrace sales. Now, anyone that says salespeople are vipers or creepy, they need to get their head read. I mean, how the hell do they think the world goes around, right? That's how companies thrive, through their sales and marketing. I'll keep saying it until my hair falls out. Whoops. There you go. Every company rises and falls on the efforts of its sales and marketing. Every company rises and falls on the efforts of its sales and marketing. So, you know, my hair did fall out, by the way, and I've just revealed what's under this hat, and it's a beautiful head. In fact, Mario Fennick, South Sydney champion, said that I've got a head like a roll-on deodorant. And it's a beautiful head, and I celebrate that head every day when I look in the mirror. And you should look at yourself too and tell yourself how bloody good you are and how fantastic you are, because that gets the job done. Okay, back to sales. Now, sales must be made for any business to succeed. We all agree with that, right? And you need to get comfortable with that. If you don't, you're going to be underselling your services, and bad habits are hard to let go of. You know, often I see keynote speakers, I say, what's your keynote fee? And they'll say $2,500. And I'm like, dude, really? Dudess, really? I mean, come on, get it up there, because once you're down at that $2,500, the $3,000 mark, you can't take it up. But if you're starting at 7 or 5, whatever you feel comfortable with, but certainly not down there, because your services, you know, if you've got your shit together, your services are worth much more than that to a company. So while you may not, you know, we're talking here the fact that you need to become proficient with making a sale. And you can do some of your own work here, as I do. I upskill all the time. But while you may not need it with some bookings because they're basically slam dunks, there will be times when you're up against other presenters and you've got to do some selling to a committee, depending on how you pitch and depending on how you handle the rapport building process. The proposal and other parts of the sale, that will govern whether you win the sale or not. Now, you want to win more than you lose because it just feels better. Now, this is how people view a salesperson. Or coffee and a burger, you want to buy, you know, I'm going to show you something here, what do you want to buy? You want a fast car, you want two-tone, you know, brown and rust, or, you know, look at you and your wife there, sail away into the sunset. But, you know, this is probably, nothing could be further from the truth, particularly these days. I mean, salespeople these days are quite refined and well respected because, you know, a good salesperson will be looking at how they can service the client. They'll be looking at, you know, what sort of problems do they have, and getting down into the nitty gritty, and they'll be researched and they'll know beforehand what their problems are. So the best paid people on the planet are in sales, believe it or not. But sales and marketing, they're very, very well paid people. Ask my wife. She's just sitting next to me, punching all the buttons of my business partner, and she does a great job. So just want to give a quick clap to Michelle. I'm sure she could probably bring up a little bit of applause there if she wanted to, but she's probably feeling a bit tired. There you go, well done. So it can be uncomfortable, you know, being in sales at first, but, you know, so can ice baths, right? Long runs, gym work, a new job, like anything new. Once you learn the basics, it becomes easier, and then it just becomes bloody exciting, because it's the most exciting thing I do. When someone gets a sale, I mean, something happens to my, you know, to my body. I mean, some weird stuff goes down where I just feel like, you know, who needs drugs when you feel like this sort of thing, you know? Who needs a beer? I just feel like, woohoo! It's just great fun. And particularly if you're doing it with the right heart, then you can afford to do that. Okay, so you know when you're in a shop and an assistant comes up and says to you, how can I help you? Many people feel almost offended and they give them a cold shoulder instead of saying, well, what is it that you've got new? Do you have anything on special? You know, can you give me some information about this product? Now, sales is the oldest profession in history of man. And granted that the early form of sales involved some pretty, well, let's not go there because I'll just leave that one alone for the moment. Sorry, my dog's moving in and out of my feet here. So look, I'm constantly looking to upskill my sales and marketing knowledge, and I do love sales. It excites the heck out of me, as I've said. And the only way I got really good at it was through practice. And that's what you're going to have to do. So get used to it, build a bridge, get over it. And I do apologize for dishing out some tough love. However, if you don't embrace sales, it will be very tough to reach your goals. So there's lots of money to be made in this caper if you get your sales moving correctly. Did I mention that word money again? I think I did. Now that little animation there, that's me playing a bass guitar with a little bit of so we create everything in house here, which is also great fun. Now let's look at LinkedIn for a minute, because LinkedIn I think is totally underutilized, and even the people I talk to. I'm talking to a very high profile person a couple of days ago, and that person said, I hate social media. Well, I think, we've sorted that out, and I think this person will love social media in future because social media is definitely the way forward. And I like to use the analogy of fishing. Now, even though I'm personally a vegan and I don't go fishing or eat piscatorial delights, it serves well as an example. Now, you can see, I think Michelle's got some sort of video up in here, but you've got to keep casting the fly or the lure. And if you only throw the bait in one spot in the pond or the river and sea, or the sea, and you only give it a few tries, it's likely you won't catch anything. So LinkedIn outreach is a numbers game. And once you get the idea that all you're going to do is to start looking to make conversations with the people that you connect with that add value to that person that you reach out to, of course, after looking at their profile and make sure that they are the right fit with the niche you've decided on. I mean, you're not trying to make a sale in the connection in the first place. That's the wrong forward. That's the wrong way forward. It's not like, hi, how you going? I'm fantastic, da 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 da. I mean, it depends actually. But a lot of you guys would not be at the stage where you've already got this massive sort of online presence and you've done 3 million shows. For example, someone like Keith Abraham or a Chris Helder, or one of these guys that are right at the top of the game, they've already got a reputation. So a connection message with a show reel or something like that, even a virtual show reel, is okay if you have got your virtual shit together. So take it slow and treat every connection with the respect it deserves. Now, if you want to know more about this process, we'd be happy to have you in the Why Don't You Go and Get book program. So head on over to SpeakMark if you want to have a look. Now, keep changing the connection message until you get the appropriate responses. We do A/B split testing on all the link accounts that we work on, and at the moment we're working on a number of keynote speaker LinkedIn accounts pretty well all over the world. So you'll soon know which message is working. You only have 300 characters. I suggest initially you only use half of that when connecting. Don't sort of rave on in the connection message if you've got nothing to say other than, hey, I mean, something that I've found that is particularly helpful is to say, your profile caught my eye. You've done an amazing job, da da da. Just to start it, because a lot of people will come back, particularly if they've got high self-esteem, and say, what was it about my profile that really caught your eye? And then you can start a conversation around that. So, yeah, LinkedIn outreach will blow you away if you really get stuck into it. Like I say, if you're using Professional and Sales Navigator, your capacity to reach out more is greater. If you're using just the standard, then they will block you if you do too much. So try and keep it down to 20 or 30 a day, and that will work better for you. So we're basically putting together a new lesson at the moment on LinkedIn outreach, which will blow you away. For those in the program, it's as concise as a guide as you'll get to be effective on LinkedIn as a booking tool for keynote speakers, coaches, and trainers. And I wrote a high six-figure in US dollars in October using this system, and I can say in this environment that is a very good number to do. We know that when we get into 2001, that's going to go through the roof. It'll double or triple, and we'll be doing probably a heck of a lot more than that. But it's really nice that the events are coming back, particularly with the virtual events. So look, the price of the program, the Why Don't You Go and Get program, is nothing compared to the information you'll get in this one lesson alone, because we're going to save you years and years of chasing your tail and wondering what to do. Okay, so let's move on. Follow up. Use a diary or a CRM. Now, how many of you are using a CRM at the moment? Are you all using a CRM? I hope so. Those of you using a spreadsheet to keep your contacts, give yourself a clout over the backside of the head now, because CRMs are definitely the way to go. They are very, very important. And what we teach the people in the course to do is to, first of all, you get your validated data. Now, that is where the person is actually working at a particular company. and you get as much information from LinkedIn. Sometimes you'll get the email, sometimes you won't. You have a brief about that person, maybe what they're doing, who they're doing it with, what sort of position they've got, and you get that information, you put it into your CRM. Because, you know, in order to do follow-ups, you've got to have some kind of a way of having recall. Now, when you get into the hundreds of contacts, it's impossible to remember even the conversation you had with that person. And you might get some great information in there. Like, for example, you know, they've got a little cutesy dog called Mitzi, and they take her for a walk every day down the thing. So next time you talk to the person, you say, oh, how's Mitzi doing? Is it okay? And it just builds rapport when you remember what the person was doing. But if you've got that person in your CRM when you're actually talking to them on the phone, I'd be having your CRM record of that person open, and I'd be taking notes of every little bit of the conversation. And they'll often give you some great information with regards to how many events they have every year, when they have those events, and about their dog Mitzi, and about they might have 2 kids, or things that you have in common. That's what you want to talk to them about. I often talk to people about the weather. It may sound strange, but I just think that, it's a great way. Where is all the hot weather gone? Well, it's coming back now. How is it in your part of the world? It's just a good icebreaker, I've found, and it always works. Now, if you get one of those people who are all business, they'll quickly put you back on track. But most people have a chat about the weather because, it's something common, right? We look up and we see a sky and we either see clouds or blue skies. So there's a little tip for you there. Now, for every contact you make on LinkedIn, I'd say get them into your CRM, set a date on that person 2 to 3 weeks after you connect with them on LinkedIn. Now, don't rely on LinkedIn as a CRM, even if you're using Sales Navigator, because the CRM will allow you to set a date and time for a follow-up, which will pop into your email or up on your screen in the morning. Now, when you get these notifications, don't ignore them, because I used to do this. They'd pop up and I go, can't be bothered doing it. It's too hard. But that's where the money is, right? Oh, did I say money again? I think I did. But making money, which is why I love that little thing popping up, just to remind you what we're about. So when you get these notifications, please make sure that you use the 5-step approach to ensure that you start a conversation or connection. What is the 5-step approach? Well, you're probably going to need to join the course to find out what that is, but it will save you a lot of time and it will make you a lot of cash. I'm not going to say money because we've just had that in there, so we're not going to do it again. Now, if you can't start a conversation with the connection after using this process that we talk about in the course, you may as well not connect with them, because for me, I do like sharing information, and I do get a lot of great information from other people on LinkedIn. But for me, LinkedIn is about transacting with people who may be able to buy your services, or you may be able to buy their services. Now, there are a number of proactive messages that you can send that keeps the conversation moving, and that's important. So once again, for more info, go to program. We've recently upgraded a lot of our lessons around LinkedIn, a number of different things. And as I said, we've been doing this for a long time, so we're going to save you a lot of time and money. Excuse me. Wait, this guy can talk a lot. So we've picked up one thing that's really helped us, and that's upskilling. And we're doing it actively, involving ourselves in programs like Why Don't You Go and Get Booked outside of our own programs to keep us ahead of the curve. I recently interviewed NRL champion Wayne Pearce, and one of his secrets was that he believes that all high achievers know that they need to upskill each year and learn something new. And I think that's something we can all take on board. It's one of those things where if you're not investing in courses, books, and other learning mechanisms to learn something new, then you're not growing. It's as simple as that. And Wayne says it's these individuals who put the effort in and they make the commitment to learn who win the game that they are playing, whatever it is. Okay, let's move on. So, video editing. I want to talk to you briefly about this because I think it's very important. So tip number 1, get moving, get used to it, learn how to do it. So what I was just talking about with regards to upskilling, for example, your first port of call, by the way, let me go back. Michelle and I have just basically taken on something quite huge in learning the Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But your first port of call for getting used to working with video, whether it be your phone, is a gentleman by the name, I'm going to say that again because I want to use this as a snippet. Your first port of call is to get in touch with Julian Mather, who is just a fabulous resource for keynote speakers, coaches, and trainers with regards to video. Now, Julian runs a program which is very helpful, and it will give you information to improve your video work. And he is an absolute genius. I love his work, and I cannot recommend him highly enough. So let me tell you about how we approach video, and particularly the editing side of the process. So you've shot your video. Now there are two ways to go about getting the editing done. The first is to find someone who will do it for you. Some folk use someone who is local, and that person, you can meet in person, get the connection, feel good about. Others use a facility like Fiverr, where they post a job description and develop a relationship with an online partner. Now there are a lot of good people online, so don't be afraid of using either. What we decided to do is learn ourselves. Now we invested in the Adobe suite of products, and we got busy upskilling, and that is the result of this show you see today. All the frames, the assets, the animations, basically we create everything in-house. Now the investment has already paid itself back, and we now have skills that we didn't have before that we were able to add to our program to add value to you, the people that were watching this. So we've actually haven't even scraped the edges of the capabilities of these programs. So we are currently focused at the moment. Michelle is on Photoshop, or all the still stuff, and I'm on Premiere Pro. And we decided that we would focus on these separate things because these are hard programs to get your head on. Michelle's been using Photoshop for quite some time, but not at the level we're using it now. So particularly with regards to documenting as opposed to creating content, and you hear me talk about this a little bit later, documenting as opposed to creating content. However, while we have dabbled with other products such as After Effects and InDesign and Illustrator, we know that when we get a chance to explore these products after Christmas, we'll be able to up our game again. So we'll be little electricity things. I'll be able to get a little sort of what is it right here, like a stick in my hand and go ding, and electricity will run all over the place. So I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to use our creativity to do that. And again, what we do on a daily basis is we learn and upskill. So the learning curve has a direct effect on the people we work with and adds value to how we do things and how we get to the stage where we have a person working full time for us doing this. We're not quite there yet. We're sort of, if you're anything like us, we're tight. And we run a tight ship, and we've just got great mentors that teach us how to do that. So if video is king in this brave new world we're operating in, then I want to get up close and personal with that king. That's my personal thing, right? So it makes perfect sense to me that I know how to use Premiere Pro because I like doing my own video snippets. Everything I do in this particular show, I'll be snipping up as part of my document to create process. I absolutely love Adobe Premiere. I used to use iMovie for many years, and it frustrated the bejesus out of me because there's so many limitations in it. With Premiere Pro, I'm kind of like, a bit of a dab hand these days, and I can just pop the video in there and snip it up at random. Oh my God, I've looked at the time. I've been going for 23 minutes. It feels like 2. So document to create, what is that? I think I talked about it last week, but it's very important because it's going to save you a lot of time. And it segues perfectly from the video creation aspect of your offering that I've just been talking about. So some of you will be thinking, hey, you talked about that last week, and you would be right. And why am I going to repeat it? Because it makes so much sense. And what I've found with teaching people stuff is that you have to say things over and over and over again for it to sink in. That's what happened to me as well. I don't get things straight from the off. In fact, sometimes Michelle will say something 3 months ago. For example, we should start an online program, and then 3 months later I'll say, hey, let's start an online program. So I'm not the quickest or the sharpest tool in the shed, but it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be. So let's go back 3 months with this live stream. For example, I would spend a few hours preparing what I would like to cover, make some notes, then I'd spend an hour trying to give the speakers in the program the best possible information I could to help them succeed. It was just me with a green screen behind me, no frames, no assets, and the live stream was closed to people who were not enrolled in the program, so it wasn't public. And quite frankly, looking back, I can't believe we were unaware of the possibilities that were available and how we could improve what we were doing. And it's been a revelation to us, and I hope you're enjoying this, because it's it's a little bit more that I see a lot of people out there at the moment. They're just using still frame stuff, and that's okay if you want to do that. I just find it a little bit I lose interest in a while. You lose my engagement, so I like to see flashy things. So 3 months ago, that's where we were. So those of you who've been watching, and I know Elly made mention of it earlier when we were offline, we from our very first live stream to where we are now in our 59th edition, we've changed a lot. So I want to tell you so that you can look in the future with hope and expectation. Now, firstly, we work with a script, which typically takes me around 6 to 8 hours to write. And I'm reading from that script now. And the reason I'm doing that is because I can talk for an hour, no problem. You can ask anyone, right? I'll probably talk for 3 hours. But what I'm looking to do here is create smaller bits and pieces so I can cut them up and put them onto LinkedIn and so on. LinkedIn's the platform I use the most. So then Michelle and I will go through that script so that Michelle can create the assets that you see popping up, like document, don't create, and the little iPhone that we've got going over here, wherever it is. Yep. And the frames, the sequences that we'll be using during the show. Now, as I said, Michelle's sitting next to me using a device called a Stream Deck, and we use Ecamm to frame and broadcast the show. So it's all scripted, and that's made a huge difference to the value we can bring, because I'm probably not raving on as much as I could, and sometimes I've gone off script here, so now I'm back. Now, the point I want to make here is that when we are writing the script, we have an eye on the content that we need for the next week to populate our social pages so that we can reach more people. Now, you'll notice with this live stream, it's made up of short segments, and if they're a little long, basically I try and cover specific points through live stream. I can chop those up. It's not too bad. And that is exactly what document to create content means. Even if some of the assets we will use become memes, and you'll notice that Michelle's been bringing up a number of different memes up there with little things. They actually go onto LinkedIn as well. So while we're creating the memes, we're actually thinking about, well, rather than creating another lot of content in the shape of memes, they can also be created on the fly. So they become assets more than for just the show. And yes, we're currently creating a new lesson around creating a show and the processes that you'll need to put in place that will be available after the Christmas break to the people in the course. The changes that are happening around social selling, documenting, creating video are moving so fast, it's incredible. It's quite hard to keep up with, because I've noticed even some experts out there, right? And experts is not a great word, because I know my mate Laurie Montague hates the word. But it's even they are falling behind. We've got companies calling us now saying, how do you do this social selling? I saw your video. I'm interested to learn more. And that's not keynote speakers, that's companies. So large companies saying, hey, what are you doing there? What is this stuff called social selling? And that's where I'm coming into now. So what is it? Okay, basically, it's becoming proficient at starting conversations with people who you are interacting with online. I'm going to say it again. It is becoming proficient at starting conversations with people who are interacting with you online, and it does take practice. So you have the greatest resource available to assist you if you are prospecting corporates or B2B with social media. And if you are taking advantage of this B2C surge or business to consumer surge since the pandemic of the mums and dads, home users, etc., you want to have something that it basically gives them an idea of what you do. So with your content creation through documentation, you can use that stuff for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Now you need to take care that you know the length of videos that you need to do, because each social media platform has its own, like for example, Instagram I think is 1 minute, Facebook might be a minute and a half. I'm not sure what TikTok is, because I haven't sort of used TikTok much because I'm not very good at dancing. Just joking. So how do you do this? Well, you do it with the content that you've created through documenting. And what you do, and I believe it's a huge advantage to get online and produce a bi-weekly show yourself. Give it a go. I mean, look, sometimes I know I do this show and we might have 2 or 3 people on. I'm not bothered about that because I'm looking to create content. And I know the people who might miss the show, there's a whole bunch of them, they'll pick it up in the recording of the live stream, okay, later on, because we put it on the Facebook page, and it basically is picked up there by a whole bunch of people, and you can see who does that. And also, like I said, it's creating this content, which is so good. Okay, something I got here is something that I've known for quite some time. I was going to talk about a phone script today, but let me talk about a phone script. If you're doing some phone work, please make sure you write yourself a script. Now, you don't have to use the script all the time. Like, you certainly don't want to get on the phone and go, "Hi, John, my name is Terry, and I'm a keynote speaker, and I talk about phone scripts." That's not what you want to do, right? So like I said, I always talk to people about the weather. So initially I forget the script, but I always have a script sitting there in front of me, particularly when I get down into the nitty gritty. So my phone call would be something like this: ring, 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 ring. "Hi, John, how you going? It's Terry Bergen here from Speakmark. How are you, mate?" "Good, yeah, no problem. I tell you what, if this weather lasts like this," I said, "I'm going to go and get my budgie smugglers on or something like that and go for a swim, get a couple of beers and head down. How's the weather in your part of the world?" "Oh, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's been a crazy year, hasn't it?" So it's just small talk, but it's just letting them know that I'm a upbeat person, and I haven't called them to sort of beat them to death with some facts about what I am, because all too often when people call people when they're doing cold calling, and I'm not saying don't do cold calling, by the way, because there are times when if you get a good list and someone's in at the time, or there are a number of different ways, but I don't put people off it because I still do it myself when the need arises. I would say put most of your focus on LinkedIn outreach, but try some phone calling as well. But use a script. Now, we've got examples of phone scripts in the program. And they just help you a lot about what to cover. To keep it short. You don't want to be raving onto the person for 3 hours unless the rapport is so strong and you've got all that lovey-dovey-do stuff. I know Elly had a lead the other day, and I called a lady first to say, "Hey, how you going?" And we got phone calls. So Elly said, "I'll call her." She called her, and it was love at first sight, and it was all lovey-dovey-doos and hearts and kisses and hugs and stuff like that. And in that instance, you can have a half an hour to 45-minute chat with someone. There's no problem at all. But if you're just talking to a professional person, that person's probably busy, and you want to use your phone script to get what you want to say out. What you want is their email address. "Can I send you some information?" And in the email, you say, "I'll follow up with you next week." Anyway, that's all part. I just wanted to touch on a phone script. Use a phone script if you're making a call, even if it's for a warm call. Use a phone script. Write down the things you want to cover with that person. Now, you may not need to use them because you might get that lovey-dovey situation that Elly got with her client. And if you do, that's fantastic, because then you can ad lib a little bit, but you can still use your notes to cover off what you need to cover off. Now, here's an oracle, a revelation, an amazing thing that I've known for a long time, that there's a Harvard Business Review report that come out and said women are now the best salespeople in this new customer-led era. Now, I've known that for quite some time, because really, we know what guys think about, right? What do they think about, girls? Footy and something else. I can't quite think of what it is right now. It'll probably come to me a little bit later. But they're not thinking about much, right? Women are thinking on their feet. They can think of multiple things at a time. They're much more heartfelt. They're more caring about the person that they're talking to. There's a lot of things to it, but I just wanted to celebrate women because I think women are awesome, and I think particularly in sales, they can really sort of crank it out there. So well done, guys. And now you've got the tip from me, you girls. You can just go forward with confidence and tell people that, women are much better to deal with than men. I can tell you that now. So Let's talk about when you are creating video. If you're creating video, please don't be too self-conscious. It's the curse of being on video is to look at yourself and start beating yourself up. But creating a live stream, a podcast, will give you the experience to perform on other shows. It'll get you used to video. And on that score alone, some people struggle when they see themselves on video really badly. Like, oh my God, is that me? Oh God. I did it myself when I first started doing this. So I've had a number of people come back to me in the last 6 months explaining to me that they're not happy with how they look or what they say, etc. It's very common, particularly when you first start doing it. It takes courage to get in front of a camera and put yourself into the picture. It's something that comes easier the more you do it. It's an experiential thing. It's not so much of a, like, how do I do it? How do I do this? You learn it by doing it. You get on there and you make an absolute balls up of what you're doing, as I have done. I mean, I've done so many bad things. I mean, just, even now I'm probably saying or I don't worry anymore. My heart's in the right place. And when your heart is in the right place and you're doing it because you love teaching people how to sell their services, and you get them coming back to you saying, I got a sale. It's like, let's do the dance, do. So there are so many online resources that can help you. Try YouTubing the subject, how do you perform well on video, or do a course, or like I said, go and see Julian. Julian's got some awesome information on just about everything to do with video. And that's what I did. I put my ass on the line, and you put your head on the chopping block and you just do it. The trick here is that what you see on the video that you produce is seldom what other people see, because they're far too worried about their own situation, far too eager to learn what you have to say, to pick up what you're doing, than they have to worry about your anatomy or how you're saying this, or to pick holes in what you're doing. They're not interested in that, and what they see is completely different to what you see. I mean, you're so self-critical of yourself. Why? Because I know I've done it myself. I remember when I first did the show, I said, oh God, can you ever go at this? I don't think I'm very good at it. Look at me. I mean, really? All of that sort of stuff, right? So sure, it helps to know what and what not to do in front of a camera, saying like I do, or you know what I mean, or, or so, or whatever it is, the little tics that you might have. Or nervous twitches, but you will improve, and your audience will always forgive you for your indiscretions if you're pumping out content that is helping them to succeed. Okay, now I've got here, look at this. I mean, creativity is intelligent, having fun. How good's that? I mean, that's why I love what we're doing here now. You'll see there's lots of different frames popping up. We're just learning this stuff. This is not, we're not saying, look at us, we're great. We're basically trying to lead by example and show people, maybe how to do something a little bit differently. And after Christmas, we know we're going to have some more stuff that is going to go pop, and you want it to pop, because eventually people are going to get so fed up of just seeing a face on a screen, or two faces on a screen, or three faces on a screen, that it happened in movies, right? Movies were black and white to start with. They were silent movies, and people went, oh, is there more to that? Yeah, okay, let's put sound to it. Okay, let's put color to it. Let's put SGI to it, and all this sorts of stuff, and they have to keep upping their game, and they do that in the movie game. And the reason they do that is because they want people to be engaged, and that's what you need to do. You need to up your game. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to talk about conversational marketing leading to sales, because I just think it's so important, and it's something that you need to practice. Am I really good at it? No, absolutely. I always rave on about Helen Mack, and Helen's probably like sick of the sound of me. But other people do it really well as well. Martin, who's in the program, does it really well. David, who's in our program, does it really well. Elly does it really well when she's got time, because she's too busy running programs or doing keynotes, which is really what you want, and doing other stuff and getting a virtual shit together. But don't confuse conversations with making sales. The conversations lead to a sale. So if you're on LinkedIn and you've got the wherewithal, I call it the wherewithal because it's hard for me to do it, like to just jump in and go. I mean, Renee Stroll, I've been watching some of her stuff, and she's awesome. Does anyone know Renee out there? Anyway, if you don't, go and have a look at what she's doing. She's got great posts. She has really high engagement. And I've often gone to say, oh, I love your stuff, Renee. But, you don't want to just say great stuff or I love your stuff. You want to make a comment that adds value to the conversation. So for example, I really think that is a fantastic point about leadership, because when I was in that position, I found that, when I was looking up to my leaders, I was thinking, are you serious? Are you really my boss? I mean, that's why I don't have a job, because I was always looking up there going, are you serious, dude? You're telling me what to do? I've had some doozies in my time. I'm sure you have. So that's why we're in business for ourselves, all right? Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Now, I just want to mention something here I learned, before I bring Elly on, I learned from the wonderful Kerwin Ray. Now, if you don't know Kerwin's stuff, go and have a look at his stuff. I learn something every day from him. I mean, you can just tell he's gone through it and he's learned his stuff. And I really respect him. I respect the things he says. Like Gary Vee, he's a swearer, and I don't bloody mind that. I probably wouldn't use some of the words, but I noticed recently they're being beeped out in LinkedIn. I'm not sure if that's a conscious thing, but they certainly don't make me feel, oh, he's swearing. I go, yeah, good on you, son, be yourself, do your own thing. Okay, so one of the things that Kerwin says is don't just close on the product itself. An example might be when you want the standard package or the gold package. You offer two things. You never end with a closed conversation. Do you want to pay by credit card or direct debit card? So creating doubt in your prospect's mind by allowing them to think, and this is what Kerwin says, don't allow them to think. And by offering them too many choices, it's the enemy of sales and marketing. So this is what I was talking about. I think I talked about it last week, where you talk the client out of it. You are the authority, so make sure that comes across when you're closing a sale, or you will lose it. If you give too much choice, it will confuse them and they'll say no. People say no when they're confused. They don't say no to your product. They just go, I don't know. No is the default position they go to. So only give a couple of options to them. And when you're closing, just don't give them one option and say, do you want this? Say, do you want the gold package or do you want the platinum package? Do you want the keynote or do you want the workshop? Or do you want a hot seat as well? I can throw that in there. Maybe 3 things is okay. But you don't leave it to chance or it will cost you over and over again. All right. Let's bring our guest in. I'm right on time, Elly. Look at that. I've been watching Elly and she's been pulling faces at me on Skype all the way through this. I did say 22, Elly, so let's bring Elly Johnson. Oh, let me do my introduction. Let me do my introduction first. Where are we? No, I don't need to do it. Let's just bring her on. Let's just bring Elly on.
No introduction required.
No
Can you hear me?
introduction required, Elly. Now I'm going to have to put my headphones on because I need to hear you.
Perfect.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you beautifully.
Can I tell you the irony? We're going to talk a little bit about tech and tech problems and tech checks. And there's a very high likelihood that the live is not actually playing through Facebook at the moment. I'm sure you're recording it so that everybody will get to see this. But I've done a bit of a check and we had a couple of text messages. And so I think our tech is not working exactly the way that we...
So we're not going through onto Facebook Live.
No, it doesn't look that way. Oh. So there's a great lesson.
At Facebook Live there, Michelle? Yes, we're going through live. We can see it. So there you go.
I can't see it, and we had the wonderful Elaine texting saying can't see anything. So
okay, so we're looking at SpeakMark is live now on the other screen there, and it looks like it's doing all right. So, but we'll sort it out. But it will be up.
We'll sort it out. It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good.
We will. And look at me, little pop down in the corner there. So Elly, was it last week or was it this week? I can't remember because so much happened. It was this week, wasn't it? Yeah, we came out. It was
this week. It was last week. It was last Friday.
Yeah, it was last Friday. We came out to your office, which we're standing in at the moment, and you are doing a key virtual presentation for a client. Now, I talk about this word interoperability. And it was your first introduction to a keynote. I know you've done training and stuff like that. So let's chat about that interoperability and how did that go with the client?
Okay, so what I've learned over the last few months is there's not all platforms are created equal. So when you are doing a training session or a keynote or even a meeting, you need to be very sure about the platform that you are interacting with and your equipment may not be friendly with that particular software or hardware, and also what the client's got at the other end. So you need to make sure that you allocate some time to do a thorough tech check, and don't assume it's okay because it worked okay in your practice, just in your office. Like, once you connect something to someone else's end, all sorts of things can go wrong, and you have to be able to break it down and also troubleshoot. So if on the tech check someone says, no, I can't hear you, and you unmute and you can't understand it, a couple of things that you need to make sure you do is don't get frustrated, because that's not going to help. Because once you get frustrated, then it'll cloud your brain and you won't be able to think clearly and logically to be able to troubleshoot what is happening. So stay calm, stay cool. And the other thing is, if you're doing a tech check with a client, then that's your client that you want to keep a good relationship with, and you need to present yourself as professional, even if the wheels fall off. And so you can't swear and curse at the computer or at the camera or at the internet connection. It's working through and trying to discover what the problem might be. And so sometimes if you've got particular software and you're using that, you can't use it through some of the different platforms. There's Zoom and Skype and GoToWebinar, and there's a whole range of them. So don't make assumptions that platforms are all created equal, because they're not.
Okay, so Elly, I often look at keynote speakers at the moment, because I know they're not currently charging for a tech run, but my point is that when you go and do a live performance, the client is responsible for transportation to and from the event, accommodation, meals, etc. Now, my feeling is that we should be charging a nominal fee that is sort of embedded in the fee for the tech run, because that took us around about 2 hours, correct?
Absolutely. That was a bit of an eye-opening occurrence for me about how long it can take for. I'm used to running training courses over Zoom, and that's been pretty straightforward over the years that I've done that. But now that there's other platforms and I've got other equipment here, it took longer, and it wasn't all about me too. It was at their end. And you're right, it took almost hour and a half to get it to the point that I realized I couldn't use this bit, but I could use this bit, and then that would work really well. So I think building that time, that tech check time, into your fee and building it into the contract is really important, because you need to value your time, and you need to value your expertise and your investment in the equipment that you've got too. And I think that if you position yourself with that value, the client will accept that, and they'll understand that too. So
I totally agree. You mentioned the contract there. I think that's really important, that, keynote speakers, coaches and trainers, if you are engaging with a client, through virtual platforms, you do need to cover it off, and you need to make sure that you charge for that, because that, we were lucky that day, because you had a really nice client, and they were really sort of understanding. But that's not always going to be the case. If you land yourself like a choleric sort of a bossy sort of a person, and you haven't got your virtual shit together from your end, it could be a lot more prickly. But you talked about the contract, and I think that's really important. Why do you think the contract's so important?
Well, I think you're setting out the expectations, you're setting out the rules of engagement, and also position yourself as an expert. You've got the equipment, you've put the work in, you know what you're doing, and you need to make sure you do. If you might be a great speaker and you're fantastic on the stage and you know your topic, but in the days that we live in now, you do need to know your tech, and you need to, if you don't know it, jump into it and play around for hours and hours and hours, like you have, and I know I have. Just today, I was so excited because I got my lapel mic working, and it hadn't been working through my equipment. It was driving me bananas, so I've been using this beautiful creature, but I wanted to be able to move around, and I couldn't get that working, and now it's working. It's my favorite day, because now I can move around my studio more freely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I know how hard you've worked to understand all of the technical points, and I'm very proud that you've done that. It's evident when we were over there that well, we thought we were going to be sort of having to jump on there and do the controls for you, but that wasn't the case at all. You were quite proficient in it. But how long have you been doing virtual? I mean, 2 months? I mean,
Yeah,
setting,
yeah.
the process from starting to going, from me saying to you, look, we need to get this virtual thing sorted out, otherwise you're not going to get a gig until 2021, right?
Mm.
Right. Let's embrace it, and the fact because I keep telling you that 60 to 70% of events and executives have said they're going to embrace it virtual after the pandemic has died down. So, I mean, you've just really got stuck in, haven't you, Ellie?
Yeah, well, it's about 3 months, and I think that if you look back on some of the early work I was doing when I was doing the interviews for Aussie Speakers USA, I was working from a shared office space. I was just using a webcam. I had a bit of material stretched up behind me, and the lighting was all wrong.
Yes, you
And
look
even
like
though
Galadriel. You look like Galadriel from Lord of the Rings in some of those.
Yeah, and it was so frustrating because I was trying different things. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And it's a lesson for everyone with their setup. Also, when you see yourself on the screen, sometimes it looks better. You think you look better than what you actually do when you record it and play it back. So some of the times I thought, yep, nailed it this time. And then when it was played back, I went, what? That looks shitty. Like, what happened there? And so you need to be aware of what the playback looks like and invest in some good equipment. You don't have to break the bank, but if you're in this game either as a trainer or a speaker and you want to stay in the game, you have to invest in your equipment and your tech knowledge to be able to stay in the game.
100%. So let's talk about that for a second, because I know some people out there will be thinking, God, how much is it? I mean, without sort of going into the fact that you have spent quite a bit. What are we talking about in terms of what sort of investments have you made?
Yeah, I know of people that have spent as little as $1,000 and people that have spent up to $30,000 to $50,000 on their studio, depending on how many bells and whistles and how many different angles you want to present. So $5,000 to $10,000, I think, is a good ballpark if you are in the speaking and training game as a professional and you want to continue to do that in 2021 and beyond. I think that one or two good cameras or the lighting, a good green screen backdrop, you need some other screens, the Stream Deck, which I know that you love and swear by, which is a fantastic bit of machinery, and I've got a mixer, the ATEM Mini Pro. I've got a lapel mic. And you can get cheap versions of a lot of these things, but you want to invest in the good stuff straight up so that it's reliable and you know that they're all going to talk to each other. Because the other thing you want to avoid is lag, and there's a little bit of lag, but sometimes there's a lot of lag, and that can be with bad equipment too, because it takes a long time for the audio to get through and catch up to the video. Now, you don't want that. If you've got a 45-minute keynote and it's like 1 second out, people hate that.
Yeah,
It's not professional.
It does affect you as well. Like often when I'm using, if I've got 3 people on Ecamm and I'm getting echo, when it's 2 people, it's always fine. So, yeah, I was just wondering as well, in terms of, you've now, we talked about your setup at your office there, and you've since having that conversation, you've now got 3 different scenes to walk into. Do you want to just talk about why that is important and what you've done in your office space?
Yeah, so if you think you can do keynotes or even training courses now just sitting in a chair, staring at the screen and sharing slides, sorry, those days have gone. 2 years ago, that was kind of like, wow, look at this, you can share slides, you can even play a video, whoo! But we can't do that anymore. We've got to get more clever. And so I did this studio up and thought, okay, stage 1, great. And already within a month, I kind of outgrew stage 1, not good enough, not good enough. So to have different scenes, to be able to make that more engaging, just like in the classroom or on a stage, like I certainly don't stand there like a robot. I move around and use my hands and, show the passion for the topics that I work with. And you want to be able to do that over the screen as best you can too. Sitting down, keeping your body very still and staring into a camera and there's no movement, people get very sick of that very, very quickly, and they're looking for something more engaging, more entertaining. So it's not just about your product knowledge and your topic knowledge now. It's you have to entertain over the screen. You have to get competent and comfortable to stare at a lens of a camera and put a bit of life into it. And having different parts of a studio or a room to walk to, a green screen which has some great things behind it, your whiteboard or your flip chart, and some other areas too. I think it's essential.
Okay, so watch it as well, because you just tapped your lapel mic because you're not used to having it there.
Yes, I know. I tapped it. Okay. Lesson 1, don't tap your lapel mic.
That's right. Hey, so at the moment you've got the scene that you're in at the moment, which is the back wall, and then on the left hand side of you, that's going to be a flip screen where you can basically just walk. There'll be a camera set up there, so you just basically walk into another scene. Now, where you're standing at the moment, there'll be a green screen. Am I correct?
That's right. I've got a green screen behind me too, and then some of these props are going over to that one.
So that screen can change. Once you walk over to the right and do your flip chart stuff, when you come back, and the client won't know this, when you come back to your green screen, you'll have a different backdrop there. There could be an asset up there or a chart. And then over to your right, you're going to have another wall where you can walk into another screen. So you've basically got 4 or 5 different options, which gives the impression that you're in a rather large space. And you were saying that you've got a tech person coming in to show you how to give the impression that you're in actually a large space when your office there is not that big.
That's it. It doesn't have to be a huge space. You just have to work it well. And it comes back to that hardware and the software that you're using too. So those beautiful frames and those scene changes that you do now on this live feed and in your courses, they're engaging because you want to know what's coming next. And it's smooth. So that sort of equipment, like a Stream Deck, it's a button press and it changes the scene smoothly. That's the sort of level that we all need to be operating on.
Well, look, it's a great point, because, look, I don't think that people are not going to buy your stuff if you're standing, but you have to stand at least. Certainly if you're sitting down, I know that already I've been involved in a number of sales where we've lost sales because someone might be sitting down, and that's okay because that was really early on. But in the US, for example, they were asking for a virtual presentation show reel. We're talking July. I mean, they were onto it really quickly, so they must have had some. I've showed this before. You're doing this, so you've got the lapel mic there. Now, what I suggest to Elly is that we try and bring someone young in that's looking to learn, so that you've got someone with you. Now, this could be your partner. This could be someone in the family close to you that is actually pressing buttons for you, like Michelle here's. To the right. Come say hello, Michelle. Just give us a wave. So there's Michelle. You can't see her, but she's waving. And Michelle pushes all the buttons. So it looks like I'm just sitting here, being fabulous and all that sort of stuff, which I am, by the way, and so are you. But it just helps. Now, could you see that being a big asset to you, Elly, if you were doing a presentation and something went, dare I say, tits up during the show?
I think having a support person is essential. That's my next step. In my business, years ago, I had a number of trainers and I had a receptionist and I had a support person. We had all that going on, and I scaled the business back to pretty much me with a few people in my corner, which is great. But then now I think having a support person, and particularly a tech person that is there watching from behind the scenes. And I think the other thing is you need to have a plan B. So when you're presenting virtually, you might have practiced it and it's all good and I've got this sorted. And then the proverbial hits the fan. What's your plan B? Because if the client has contracted you to do a gig and everyone's there, you might have 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 people on the other side, and something goes wrong. What's your plan B?
Absolutely. That is such a salient point, because if you are contracted to earn this much money and it's an absolute train wreck, the client has every right not to pay you. Now, if something goes wrong at the client's end, if they're using, whatever platform they're on and someone presses a button wrong, then you've got no problem. But if you're sitting there doing a virtual presentation and you do not have your virtual shit together and it's your fault, the client has every reason to exercise the rights in their contract, and often they won't. because we're in the early stages. But as we get into 2021 and this becomes the norm, they're going to come down harder and harder because they're going to have experiences with you guys that don't have your virtual shit together, and you're going to run into these. I mean, Elly, it's true, right? If something can go wrong, it will, particularly with virtual, right? So
Yeah, it really will. And things that you don't expect to go wrong, things that you've practiced it and you're like, okay, I've got that bit sorted, and then it comes to show day and that's not working, and it's like, why is
yeah,
that not working?
that's right. I mean, with this show, for example, we do a 1 hour. We start at 9 o'clock, and last night we did a kind of a mini tech run through the script. We iron out some of the problems with the script. I write it, so God knows there are a few of them in there. And then in the morning we'll go through a full run. So we'll do top and tails of each asset and so on and so forth. And I suggest that the keynote speakers get into the habit of doing this as well, that they're working from a script, particularly if you're working with someone else that's going to be dropping assets in. And you guys have got such a great opportunity here to make your presentations engaging by having these drop-ins, because they won't be expecting it. They'll be expecting someone to sit there or stand there. As I said, if you have a look at Keith Abraham's show reel, and I think that's where we've worked from, Elly, because Keith's such a great example to all of us. I think in something like April, May or something like that, he started investing into virtual because he saw what was coming, and it's been a great investment for Keith. He's done something like 75 keynotes in the last 60 days. So
Keith's my superhero. I had a chat to Keith, and I think it's important for people just starting out in that virtual space, speakers and trainers, to try not to reinvent the wheel too much. There's people that have already learned what to do, and there's so many resources online. So don't feel that you're alone with that, and have a look at Keith's show reel, because you can sort of see how he's done it too. And I plan to have a similar show reel very soon, so you can have a look at my three walls in the space. And I've picked people's brains. Rachel Robertson, I had a great chat to her, and she helped me out with her setup too. Julian Mather, you mentioned before, he's a genius on video. So there's a lot of people out there that are generous also with their time and their wisdom. But get into it. You've got to get stuck into it.
Absolutely. I mean, if I was a keynote speaker, coach, or a trainer, the first thing I'd do was sign up for Julian Mather's course. I would definitely go and do it, because you need to get a handle on some of this stuff, and the more you know, the better you're going to get. So Elly, let's just talk about, because we've been doing LinkedIn outreach with you for a while. Does our system on a methodology work?
I'm so excited that it's working.
Yeah, it's incredible, right?
In the past, I had no system, and I was very much make it up as I go along, and that was going okay, but not to the level that I wanted to take my speaking career. So working with you and as being part of this team, it's amazing the conversations I'm now having and the bookings I'm now getting, and where I'm taking my topics and my speaking business is so exciting. So yes, it does. What you teach, what you do with the team, it works.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, because I know we're heading off into the national NAB, isn't it, at the moment? So that's all just come from reaching out with a methodology behind it, a method to the madness of why do we do this outreach? Well, we do it for a reason. If you've got the steps right, and if you know how to push the right buttons when you're connecting, you will get responses, and you will talk to the people who have influence. And for example, with the NAB, we're talking like way up there high. So I think we talked about, well, this person's not an events manager. That's probably not what you're looking for. If you can find someone within an organization that is at a senior level, they have enough influence to use you and enough discretionary spend to bring you onto their team if you've got the right stuff for them, if your content is right. Elly, I want to thank you very much for today. You're so giving, and I know how hard you're working. Congratulations on your speaking business. You're just cranking it up, and I know that 2021 is going to be an absolute massive year for you. And for all you other... For all the other guys, for all you other guys out there as well, it can be the same for you. It's just a matter of this team here that we're growing in. Why don't you go and get booked program? there are people at different levels, and I can see where people are. I mean, Elly's been sort of, beating the pavements for a long time. She was an exclusive with a rather large speaker bureau before she came and started working in the program with Michelle and I. And I know the difference, Elly, is making a big impact on your business now. Correct?
Correct. Chalk and cheese.
Okay. See you all later. This has been Terry Bergen, and we had Elly Johnson on, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with more information. This will be recorded and put up onto Facebook. So if we did have some kind of a massive sort of mistake here, because we're doing a few things different today. It will be on the Facebook Live. It'll be on the Facebook Speakmark page later on. So have a great week, everybody. Stay profitable, earn lots of money, work really hard, and you will get the results as well. See you all. Bye-bye. Thanks, Elly. Why don't you go and get booked?